That's right, folks. It's time for the 2017 Control Trends Awards. This is Eric Stromquist. Welcome to Control Talk Now, your smart buildings videocast and smart videocast. And just remember, control guys are a girl's best friend. So with that, I'd like to welcome our co-host, yours and mine, the man, the myth, the legend, the one, the only, Kenny Smyers, the control guy from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Kenny, welcome to the show. Big dog.
Thank you very much, Eric. It's always great to be here, and it's an exciting time of the year because we are 1 week away, 1 7-day calendar line from the Control Trends. The 2017 Control Trends will be held at the Hard Rock Cafe at 63 West Ontario Boulevard. Actually, it's West Ontario Street, 63 West Ontario Street. And we have a full house. We're sold out, and it's going to be a great show. I always get a little nervous because there's a lot of logistical odds and ends to take care of, and they're all coming together very nicely, and it's going to be a super environment. We got a chance to see the group of people that are supporting us at the Hard Rock Cafe. Some of the things that they have planned for us, and it's just going to be a fun time, and it's going to be a very important time because we're going to recognize the heroes and the superstars of our industries. This is one night of the year where forget about the Super Bowl of footballs and World Series. This is all about the controls world that we live in, the way we make our livings, and the superstars that really and truly do the heavy lifting behind the curtains and engage every day the users that make, they deliver all the products that make our world what it is. So it's for us, it's just a lot of fun, but it's 7 days. Oof.
It's coming on quick, Kenny. Smyers coming on quick. And I tell you what, the thing is, buddy, it's a sold-out show. In the past, we always had, wasn't a sold-out show. We had bigger venues we were able to work with. We got a very special venue like we've talked about before. It's going to be a completely different atmosphere. It's going to be really rocking. It's going to be great. But unfortunately, if you don't have a ticket or have a sponsor that has a ticket for you, it's probably going to be cold. We don't want to have to turn you away at the door, but it's kind of, it is what it is. So this year, for sure, you got to make sure you have a ticket or you won't be able to get in. And that's just the fire marshal says we can have this many people in there. So it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be a great show. The voting has gone through the roof, Kenny Smyers. We have more participation this year than ever. And I tell you what, buddy, it is going to be something else. But I tell you what, man, we got all the information on the website, so you can get the venue, the times, and everything else. And hey, if you don't know by now, you probably don't have a ticket, but it's going to be the place to be, like you say, where we have our Hollywood moment, where we celebrate, we get on the red carpet, we come together, we put our swords down, we don't fight for a night, we celebrate each other, we celebrate our industry, so it's going to be good times. But Kenny, real quick, man, you got some shout outs this week, so before we get on with the show, it's time for Ken shout outs.
Well, I'd love to. First one goes to Elaine Lepla of Honeywell. She had a birthday yesterday. Happy birthday, Elaine. I've known Elaine for many years. Next up, we have congratulations to Patrick Dumas for 5 years at Schneider Electric Canada. But Patrick, he's a longtime veteran with Viconics, and congratulations, Patrick. Craig Beatty, he's a local guy. He's celebrating his 4th year at Rennick Brothers. He's a project manager and does a great job. And then last but not least, we have congratulations to Donnie Walker. Donnie sent out a LinkedIn post to thank everybody and Control Trends for being nominated as a Progressive Engineer of the Year, the Control Trends Engineer of the Year award, where we are recognizing the people in the engineering community that are setting those new specifications out there to make the smart connected building a reality. And Donnie does a great job down there. So that's our shout outs for the week.
Well, I want a special shout out to Donnie Walker as well. Donnie is in Atlanta at Newcomb and Boyd. And Kenny, we've got to know Donnie because every one of the shows that we go to, he is there. And I think one of the most refreshing things that we've seen over our years, and by the way, we're hitting 10 years with Control Trends this year. 2008 was when we got started. So happy birthday to us. But over the years, when we first got started, it was most of your consulting engineers didn't show up at these events, right? It was cut and paste, business as usual. And, Donnie's the guy we started seeing since day one at the Realcomm IBCon events and so on and so forth. There are more and more engineers are coming every year to these things. So so we wanted to acknowledge, if you think about what Control Trends does is we track the trends if you think about the Control Trends Awards, we celebrate the superstars in our industry. And, those superstars are really the ones that are in tune with the trends and the ones that are adapting to these changes. And, open systems being one. And you take a guy like Donnie Walker, man, and there are others. Anybody that's on our ballot, Ken and I vetted them. I mean, they're all worthy of this particular award, but they're the ones who are really going to help us change the industry, the way things are done. They're the ones who are going to start to look at things going, just because we've done it this way all the time doesn't mean we should continue to do it this way. And it was interesting in Donnie's case, because I called a bunch of distributor people early on to say, who are some of the potential nominees, and people all across the country knew who Donnie was, which was kind of a phenomenal occurrence. So Donnie's a totally, a great guy, does good stuff. And of course, all our nominees are. So that's a category we want to really acknowledge this year.
Well, you're so right on top of it with Donnie. I was very impressed on how knowledgeable he was, not just in the building automation, but security. I was a CPP in a former life. It's a certified protection professional from the American Society of Industrial Security, and they have a very challenging test to get the certification. Then you got to maintain it with the CEUs. Get so many a year to maintain your CPP status. And he had a couple of guys on staff, and they knew as much about security as they did every other subject within the building. So I was always very impressed. Another thing, too, about this Progressive Consultant Engineer of the Year that demonstrates the industry leadership in advancing smart buildings is that we've got a global impact. We have engineers that were nominated from Toronto, France, England, and then, of course, all across the states. But there is a growing community of really aware. The new specifiers in our industry are coming from all points, and it's very important because, as we'll talk later on in the show, technology and IoT, although it's a buzzword, it's almost going flat in terms of its impact because it's so tramped on. But we're seeing these technologies come into play now, and we're seeing different ways to make sure that there's no silos anymore, and these guys are leading the charge. So congratulations to all these guys that were nominated, and we'll see them at the show.
Well, that's right. And Kenny, I tell you what, man, the voting ends on the 15th tomorrow, and boy, it's like I said, been a great voting period. And if you think about what we've done, we've added categories. We've let some categories go. We've added categories as we've seen the trends change. And the consulting engineer, I think, was one that we're adding this year. It's the first time we did it. If you think about 2 years ago or 3 years ago, we started with the Master Systems Integrator of the Year. And so that's again as a category we'll have this year. Another really, really great group of finalists that made that category. And now we're, acknowledging the IoT type solutions of the year, as well as the trainer of the year, because all these are important components. And my guess is, Kenny, as we go forward, our next category will be, a project of the year where we bring the users in. Because if you think about it, we've got the manufacturers, we got the distributors, we got the contractors, and the only group of people that are missing are the owners. So at some point in time, we'll bring those folks in as well.
Well, it's interesting. And then the Control Trends is the most impactful marketing collateral. That was a new one from maybe 3 years ago. But it not just grew in popularity and input, it grew and expanded. We got some fabulous opportunities to see marketing approaches from different manufacturers and vendors, but not just from North America, but from around the world. And and again, because when you come down to it, the common denominator, the universal language that we speak is buildings, and inside the buildings we got people, and with those people we're concerned about the well-being and their productivity, and so we basically all have that same currency to work with, and so it makes the global it makes it interesting because it's global, and it's, when you see all the different countries involved, and you see all these intelligent people, and their approaches are similar but a little bit different, because of the local codes and all the other stuff, whether it's NPT versus British threads or whatever, it's still inside this. It's the same goal, and that is to be as smart and intelligent, as connected, and as conducive to a healthy environment as possible. So it's a great way to kind of sum up our year. 2017 was an extraordinary year. We saw a lot of new solutions posed. We saw a lot of good software. We saw a lot of good, management, data management, platforms and ideas on how to make data important, filter it, make it actionable, what you do, and whether to send it to the cloud or the edge. So getting to hear all these intelligent people talk about, things that make our business better is a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. And, Ken, one shout out, we probably haven't talked about this gentleman in a while, talking about global. Our friend Samir Pradham over in India, who is very enlightened, his company and what they do over there. So, Samir, shout out to you and a happy new year to you as well. And all our fans in India. We got, quite a following in India as well as different parts of the world. And we see a lot of those cats at the EZIO event, the global event. So shout out to them and happy, prosperous new year to everybody. And Kenny, I tell you, we got a fabulous guest coming up here in a few minutes. But buddy, we got a couple posts we should talk about. What do you think?
I just wanted, because you brought up another really good thing. Thank you to everybody. The Control Trends community has grown to be represented by 56 countries. So this year we had participation both in the nomination and in the voting stages or phases of the Control Trends Awards. I have countries that I'm not even familiar with, but it tickles to see that we have Mozambique, Latvia, Kuwait, Czech Republic, Israel, Estonia, Chile, Switzerland, Bahrain, Bulgaria, Austria, Taiwan. I mean, it's like the UN of controls, and we get to be have that opportunity to interface with all these people and get their inputs and see what's going on in the world. So it's not just a North American product. Alrighty, well we've got some great posts, and these were. A lot to do with there's a lot going on, a lot of events. And as you always mention, it takes a concerted effort to keep on top of these things. And a lot of these webinars or these meetings, these organizational meetings, whether it's in Arizona or at the HR show, we're doing our best. If you continue to provide it to us, it makes it easy for us to repost them and make sure that we get your event featured on Control Trends. So the first post up we have is a Blimo webinar, Delivering Innovative Solutions at the 2018 AHR Expo. And of course, this is what Blimo saying that you're welcome to visit them at their booth at 4136. Their booth number 4136, and then you can register. But they actually have a webinar to tell you, it's a 30-minute webinar to present a preview of all the innovative solutions that they will be showcasing at HR. So this is a webinar to talk about the big show. So it's a good idea. So we know Blimo is just they've earned their place to serve as the market leader by valuing ingenuity and craftsmanship and never resting on their previous accomplishments. Very simply, Blimo strives to build the best damper actuators, control valves, and sensors in the world that solve comfort and energy challenges and perform flawlessly and earn your trust throughout your long and productive life.
And, of course, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that Blimo has been a platinum sponsor for the Control Trends Awards since day one. And without enlightened companies like Blimo, Honeywell, Johnson, the rest of them, I mean, the Control Trends Award wouldn't be possible. So if you're at the Control Trends Awards, or even if you go to their booth, which I encourage you to do, walk up to them and thank you for supporting the Control Trends Awards, because without them, there's no party on Sunday night before the Control Trends Awards. Right, Kenny?
That's true. It's very true. You can never say enough about the sponsors. And the show, as it goes through phases, back when we, we're coming to the crescendo event. So, we'll be dog tired come the end of that AHR show. So Wednesdays normally, like Jim Young used to say, we got to go to the mountain and decompress, because there's just a tremendous, volume of work to do and processes to do, and then all of a sudden it's over, and then there's like a vacuum. So we'll be doing we've got a videographer coming in, Vlad. Everybody's kind of used to that high quality presentation we're going to capture. The marketing collateral is going to be extraordinary, and that'll be our follow up after the show. But then again, we got to rally back, come July, rally back and get the support of the sponsors again. So it's a recurring effort that we always try to make better, easier, and give more value to the sponsors, because we certainly couldn't do it without you.
Well, Kenny, I tell you what, man, our next post, and we were kind of wondering why we didn't get more hits on this, and I think I understand why. We did a ControlTalk rewind with Rolling Oaks, and I think the reason we're not getting more hits on it is it looks like somehow the video didn't get posted with that, so we'll correct that right away. But I tell you what, Kenny, man, our conversation with Rolling, which she was on ControlTalk a while back. What a phenomenal woman, man. What can you tell our community a little bit about Rolene and what your thoughts were on her?
Well, it was on there, so something must have snafu'd
Yeah,
at the back end
that's
of
right.
it.
We'll repost the video. We'll get it back up there. But
My
so I
thoughts on
encourage
that.
you, if you hadn't had a chance to see this, like I said, we'll get this posted right after we do the show today.
Yeah, and it was okay. This particular post was one of my favorite of the year. I mean, we do what one a week, so probably around 48 Control Talk Nows. We missed a couple because of traveling or because of holidays, but we do this Control Talk Now news of the week every week, and sometimes some shows are better than others because it's just the way it is. You're always a constant, champion. I have my good weeks and bad weeks. So, but this one, this particular interview with Rolling Oaks was like going to. I felt like we were getting a webinar, a personalized, informative insight into what's going on in our industry and what's happening because this woman is a highly intelligent, there's a high performance sales and marketing executive with the channel company who possesses a deep expertise in the channel alliances industry and research. She does client consulting work and training curricula across the IT world. She actually was able to inform us where we are on the industry roadmaps and how there's inflection points that occur in the industries where the way business was done for so many years collides with the way the business is going to be done in the new world. The new paradigm is going to literally, it reminds me of the weather systems. You have the equatorial winds crashing into the Arctic, the cold Arctic winds, and basically wherever those two areas collide, there's severe weather, there's severe change, and then one storm system or the cold goes under, the heat goes up. But she says our industry is at this inflection point with operational technology and information technology, and we always thought that we were the only ones that knew about this. Well, she gave us the 30,000 foot look down from where things are going to happen, and some of the disruption that we have trended through this year, 2017 especially, is quite normal. And she actually gives a great insight into where you should put your chips in the future, because this is what's going to happen. She talks about partners and how you have, if we're in our industry and we do it right and we stay busy as the people providing the HVAC and building automation to end users and in all the markets, from industrial to the mush markets, if we play our cards right and learn and be careful to be willing to move to right or to the left to learn this technology a little bit more or get more proficient in IT and understand how networks work. If we're willing to do that, our industry, our HVAC technicians, our HVAC service companies are in prime position to move into this next generation that Rolene calls, the roadmap. For our technology. I was overwhelmed.
It was fantastic, Kenny. And, there's a proverb that comes out of Pittsburgh, or maybe China, called "with great chaos comes great opportunity," right? And the term that Rolene used that I really like a lot is the playbook, right? It's like other industries have been through similar type things, and she has tracked these sort of, we call them sea changes for lack of a better term, and they've actually tracked multiple, companies that took different strategies and different approaches. And so part of what the channel group does is they can say, look, if your company did this during the last 2 or 3 sea changes, this was the result. If you didn't do this, this was the result. So I think the takeaway for me, Kenny, was I think, most of the people we talk to are they're either concerned about what's going to happen or they're just hanging on until I got 2 more years and who cares, right? But most people we talk to are concerned about, what's the play here? How do we position ourselves? Do we get bigger? Do we get smaller? Do we buy people? Do we partner with people? And I think that the Rolene's conference is very optimistic. She's very, very optimistic about the fact that there's great opportunities here if you know the moves, if you know the play. So, I think she gives you the playbook, and we've sort of partnered with her. We're on actually one of the boards with the channel group now, where we're going to be participating with other people as we talk about these changes and sort of sift through it. But the channel group is it's a great organization. It's for bigger people. I mean, it's for the big companies. They're the ones who support it. They're the ones who buy that. But the webinars and the stuff like that for us are essentially free. They're giveaways right there. So it's great information. And what an articulate, brilliant woman, huh?
Yeah, it was enjoyable, and she's very gregarious. She has she does this for a living, so she knows how to explain in layman's terms very difficult concepts. Where she talks about how we always say whoever holds the customer's hand at the end of the day is safe for that evening, and until tomorrow morning,
Nice.
because the last, touch with that customer, we're going to be talking about high touch, is that the reality is that the user dictates the services that they're going to seek, and their expectations change, and organizationally we see people fusing departments together. We're learning about cybersecurity, and we've got a lot more to learn about that, because we don't have it from that IT perspective. But the closer OT and IT merge and become essentially integrated and necessarily integrated, it's going to require people that were OT experts becoming a little bit more IT, gather more or learn more about the IT world, and vice versa. But she, like you said, she had a very optimistic, assessment of where we're at, both in distribution and in contracting. So, a lot of people are under feel the weight of the Amazon effect, where we're losing a lot of the commodities are sold on the internet, just like Sears, the big retailers. There's a really fighting to be relevant, like you say, stay in control and stay relevant, because they've allowed the internet to be so successful. And so the preference of the consumer dictates, the future of gigantic companies as well as small companies. So she said that she's going to come back on the show, and she's going to keep giving us building blocks. And it's almost like we should charge for the webinar. I'm kidding. Because it's so informative. It's like going to school, because they have all this documented, history of what happens at this point to literally be called a playbook. So this is going to happen at this point in time. This is going to happen at this point in time. And she's going into major manufacturers and vendors with this information, where they're paying handsomely for it. But she's also, like I say, it's such a great entity in the industry. She's willing to share that with our group through the Control Trends. So it's a great opportunity for our Control Trends community to stay informed.
No, agreed. And I think, again, the thing that's great about it is one of my teachers used to say, in God we trust and all else get data. In God we trust and all else get data. And, of course, all this is grounded in data and statistics. So it's not her opinion. This is just actually what happened. And so, the best way to predict the future is look back in history and create it. So, but hey, man, speaking, I think Rolene might be the smartest woman in the room, but our next guest is the smartest guy in the room for sure. Hey, the January issue of Automated Buildings is out. So how about introducing our guest, Kenny?
Love to. We have the one and only owner, editor of Automated Buildings, Mr. Ken St. Clair, and we're going to talk about a lot of things. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Welcome, Ken.
Thank you, guys. Always a pleasure.
Oh, man, always glad to have you here, buddy. So, hey, man, the January issue's out. Why don't you say we just dive right into that? Great theme here. And by the way, dude, I had no idea you were like Vincent van Gogh or Picasso, man. I'm loving the artwork you're coming up with your blogs and all.
Yeah, I've actually been fiddling around with social media, and found out that nobody reads the words, but they look at the pictures. So you better have a good picture, or they'll never even read your words.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah, well, you got some great pictures, that's for sure, my man.
Yeah, actually, I'm pleased that we're getting out to a little larger crowd than Automated Buildings, and some of the other magazines, they've kind of come to that same conclusion, and they've got some very neat pictures as well. So it makes it quite easy when I'm forwarding that kind of stuff on social media to come up with some interesting, great pictures.
Well, dude, are you painting those yourself? Why don't we start a rumor right now that you're the guy painting them?
No, nope, not me.
Well, but
no, I'm the digital. I'm the clip and copy kind of guy, or take it from
cut and paste
from one of the other articles.
Well, you talk about that, and it's interesting. My wife's family are all big artists. Her father, ran the art department at the University of New Mexico. Her sister is a noted artist, and you talk about art and technology sort of coming together in several of the articles in this week's episode or this month's episode. And she was reading a book and raving about a book called Art and Technology, the interface that the two really go hand in glove. And so talk about that correlation between art and technology as you see it.
Oh, okay. I kind of missed the Picasso job. I guess I am painting, but I'm painting with apps rather than a brush. So what you technically do with a lot of this stuff is you take one picture and you put it on top of another picture and you push a button and it morphs it into what you think you want. And I kind of like that because I think that's part of the message that our industry is trying to portray as well, is that we're going to have to create this new face, and the way we're going to create this new face is not any way we ever imagined. It's going to be collecting a bunch of digital transformation programs, putting them on top of our rusty old buildings, and pushing a button and coming out with a new image that's attractive and functional. So, it's kind of fun stuff.
Well, Kenny, before you hop in real quick, when you start talking about digital and art, so here's an app that I have. Let me hold it up where everybody can see it. It's called Thumb Jam, right? It'll record like 52 tracks, any instrument you want. I don't know if you can hear it or not. But I can change from organ to whatever instrument I want. And actually, you could create a whole symphony on this thing. And it's funny because I was talking to some musicians that are pretty, so the deal is you don't even have to know how to play a musical instrument anymore to be able to create great music. And I think we're seeing that with painting and everything else. So I think it really gets to this whole thing, Ken, that I think you're on top of this, new face of digital transformation, because, whereas before you would have to study for years and years and years to learn a musical instrument. Now for $9.95, you can get an app that'll record 50 tracks on your iPhone. And if you're so inclined, if you're creative, you don't have to know how to play the instrument anymore.
Right, and I think that really is the message. And the other thing is our experience is what will make that new song or that new picture. Because if you give that picture to some of the new folks, they're going to come up with a new picture. If you give it to some of our folks, they're going to come up with a mashup of our past experiences and start more of a transformation, carrying it out. And that's why I picked the West Coast transformation mask. In that culture, they believe inside of every person there's another person, a better person, which is a good theory, a kinder, a more mindful person. And in their dance, they tend to always start with a very almost, it's usually animal, and then inside the animal is a person. But often in the mask that was portrayed, it was like a witch type person, and inside was a much mellower person. But anyway, a total transformation. And of course, this was done, in the 1800s. Potlatching and stuff was pretty popular all the way through. So it's an interesting thing. The other thing I like about the analogy is that it's built from you start with a raw log and you start carving this out. And I think that's exactly what we've got to shake our heads. And we've got a lot of raw logs around us, a lot of this digital stuff. And we look at it, it overwhelms us. But how we put it together, how we carve our way through all of that stuff is an important piece.
Well, Ken, it's an interesting analogy, and I like it because of the opportunity. When you recreate yourself, you can also recreate a softer version. In other words, a more efficient version. So, as you say here, it says that we have you start off the January campaign with an intriguing proposition that we have a digital opportunity to recreate a softer version of ourselves and our industry. We were all involved in today's digital transformation and have an amazing opportunity to create new, softer mindfulness face for the greater good. And so I think that kind of, that attitude is very healthy because it's genuine. I think the younger generations, people are going to feel as though they belong to it because as we spoke offline, we've seen some of these social media impacts within buildings now. And the feedback I got from somebody that has the Comfy, for instance, in their building was that they really appreciated that. And they take it for granted now that they work in a clean, safe, healthy environment, and then when they need to speak to the environment, they have an interface on their smartphone or whatever that they can engage the BMS system or BAS system and say, "Hey, I'm cold, I'm hot, whatever." So I think it's all working. I think it's coming together. So I really enjoyed that editorial.
Good. Well, thank you very much. We've had a lot of fun with it, and I've liked everybody's put their own face on it too. I really liked what FacilityNet did with the person's face being forced through a digital screen, which was sort of an updated version of the native mask. Lots of fun stuff going on. And right on the heels of that transformation and the greater good, just before I go away from that, is I think the other head shake that's inside of that is that we all have to start thinking more like app developers than traditionally we have hard control people. If we go back not that many years, it's somebody would give us a hot, cold complaint and we'd say, the temperature is right. Don't call me. Those days are gone. You get over it. So now we have to have a transaction with them. And they're very much into their phones. They're very much into apps, as you can see, as Eric is showing us his favorite app, and I could show you my favorite app of the day, and everyone's like that. We have to start being more like app developers because that's what we're really selling to the public, we're to our client.
Right. Hey, Ken, let me hop in real quick. I think you're on a tread here, and I think Kenny's on a tread here too with Comfy. Kenny and I both read a book a while back called Bold, and it was sort of like predicting, where you're going to make money in the future. And what they pointed out is focusing on the interface. And Kenny, I think this is where Comfy really got it right. And this might be a trend and a message to our manufacturers is you got to get the interface right. And Kenny, you'll remember they were talking about that Airbnb books more rooms than Marriott, Hilton, and all the hotels combined together. Uber built the app. So, Ken, I just think that you're right on it, Otto, that it's really about the app. And I'm not sure outside of Comfy that I've seen a lot of traction with vendors in our industry that are actually focusing on the app. Have you?
We're starting to, and actually the next thing is my first shot was we got to work on our face and come up with a more mindful face. And then my next observation is we got to look at the voice. And of course, just coming out of the Christmas season, the greatest selling products were these basically Hey Googles and Alexas and Amazon's personal assistants. The sales were just unbelievable, millions of them. And if you've actually played with those products, you actually get to see that this whole voice thing. And very quickly on the heels of that, in our new products this month, we have a thermostat that has an Alexa interface to it. So now we've seen the transition from the voice from transformation of a better face into a voice interface. And with that voice interface comes entertainment. Hey Alexa, play me a tune. Hey Alexa, what's the weather today? Good morning, Google. What's my day? All these kinds of things. Now that service comes from your thermostat. So that's a big radical change, and that's to me is just it's a part of the face, but it's an incredibly important part. So we just got an article published in Contractor, and it's the voice of IT, and we starts with a little girl speaking into a tin can, and that's kind of where it all starts. I've been fiddling with this stuff. The whole idea of the voice interface is it's becoming cheaper and more effective than any of these touch screens, or, believe it or not, cheaper and easier than any combination of buttons that we've had in the past. So all of these products are kind of taking on a pattern that you take them out of the box, you download the app, you start talking to them, and they basically tell you what it is you have to do. It says, oh, you haven't set up the such and such, go and set that up. You go there, and between working on your phone and doing what it tells you to do, it basically has you set up your Wi-Fi sensors. And I think that's pretty significant. The other thing I saw that was very encouraging is that in my living room, I have 3 different Wi-Fi sensors. But when I say, hey, Google, turn on the living room, the 3 sensors come on together, and it tells me I've turned on 3 sensors. It doesn't mention that they're from 3 different manufacturers. So now we have voice starting to pull together our devices, and it's hitting the homes. It's just a matter of a very short time until the CEO of a company is going to ask you to provide something like that for at least his apartment, or at least his hotel room. So anyway, changes.
Well, you're right. I bought a Hey Google. I got the Google Mini, and I bought 3 of them, one for each of my daughters, and we've had a lot of fun with them. But yeah, everything you're saying is so right. I've been tempted now. I actually have a Wiser Air thermostat that I'm trying to find out now if I can interface my thermostat. There's a lighting control now to. So I see the importance, exactly what you're saying, that we have to train ourselves, but then the setup was amazingly simple, and it says exactly what you need to do next, or where it's not connected. You discover things just like you did with Bluetooth, and the pairing of the devices is amazingly simple. So I see it coming too. It was like a wake up call that our industry now is going to be, if you don't start to incline, like Eric was saying, that you don't see many of these comfy style interfaces available, but the ones that are available are all residential, mostly. They're all, into the house and into integrating all the devices in the house. And then that expectation will be carried into the corporate office place, and everybody's going to wonder what's the problem. So I think you're right on the path to a very immediate future.
Well, and Kenny, real quick, Ken, because I think along those lines, James McHale did an article in the January issue of Automated Buildings, actually talking about how Alexa is being used and deployed as a virtual assistant, replacing virtual assistants, and we actually posted a video on that showing you exactly how that would work. So good stuff there, Ken. As usual, you're right on top of it with your articles.
Okay, the other thing I wanted to mention is I'm right with Ken too I love the Bluetooth headset. The way we all put a Bluetooth headset on and it says pairing or turning on. It just blows me away as being in an industry where we've actually made devices, and here I've got a $50 to $100 product that actually provides a whole bunch of other services, and I talk to it. That is so cool that a simple product like that they can manufacture and have a voice. And of course, that's an interesting one too, because that's not like a Hey Google voice or an Alexa voice. That's a voice that's just inside of the chip in the device. So all of a sudden, I think we're going to the combination of apps and voice, I think, is something we as an industry have got to watch.
Absolutely. And that was my other Christmas present, by the way, the Bluetooth headset. So I can go for a walk and listen to my book. I was very slow to adopt that, and I don't know what's wrong other than it's we get so into our groove, we get comfortable, and then we forfeit an opportunity to make our lives easier and simpler because of the habit of staying at the same space, eating the same cheese. But I think 2018 is going to be, I think, transition point, or like Rolene Oakes said in an interview we had with her that we posted last week. And it's just an amazing transition point that we're in as an industry, where she could liken what's coming to a previous roadmap that they saw happen with the IT industry, and how the partners begin to fuse and change and grow left and move right, because you cannot say where you're at, because the market, the desired location is to have a customer base that's happy and repeats the business. So to get there now is a whole different avenue. So I think technology, the IoT things that we've been talking about month in, month out, are starting to stack up in a sequence now that we can see a chain reaction where you start little. Everybody learns a little bit of the piece. You put some technology in place that everybody uses, the wireless routers, and then bang, it's just going to happen. So
yeah, there's some rapid changes coming down for sure. I think Mark Peacock got it right too. Is he says, like, what the IoT is not only just changing how we do it, it's changing what we're doing. Like what we're delivering is completely different than what we used to deliver. We used to just deliver technology devices, and now we're basically delivering a comfort. We're delivering a mindfulness. We're creating an interface between our those machines that blow cold air on you, and can you imagine how neat that would be? Is when the thing's blowing cold air on you, you can say, "Stop blowing cold air on me." How good would that be? How happy would that make me?
Well, Ken, I got a question for you, and rumor has it you're the only one on the planet that can answer this question. All right, so here's the question: how do you teach an IoT monster to ride a bike?
Yeah, it's a tough one, but it was another good metaphor. As you can see, I'm big into metaphors these days. Actually, following, I think Therese taught me how to do that. I used to read her articles, and she remember the one that the metaphor that Therese had that just blew my mind was the one that with the horses and the cars in New York City at the Easter parade. That one picture just showed me how fast change occurs. And I think that relates to this too, this is how fast this change will occur. In fact, it may change in less time than we went from horses to automobiles. We will go from digital transformation and voice. I've got another caveat coming up on that as well. So the octopus became that. That's actually a friend of mine has painted that on the wall of our local bike path, and she actually is an illumination engineer. Taught me everything I know about lights and lighting, and how lighting is an art. Another interesting science that actually crosses over to that touchy-feely side, and she did an amazing job of teaching lighting, because lighting isn't just turning on, lighting the room. There's a whole feeling to it. And of course, that's getting kind of interesting now, because we're starting to see with tunable LEDs, lighting is a deliverable. And particularly in the retail space or the art gallery space, an interesting thing, local art gallery has just flipped over to LEDs, and they allow the artist to have input on what color is going to be projected on their art, which of course is a very significant thing. So now we have a whole new variable to control, which is kind of interesting.
Absolutely. Oof. Yeah, I agreed wholeheartedly. I saw a lighting webinar where the scenes now for a school can be regulated to the point where you got your arrival AM all the way through lunch, and then after lunch, it's almost like a sedating environment where the lights are going to become the first action taken, and it's very simple. And even in the heating and cooling, the first stage of cooling could just be blue tints of lights from the LEDs, giving you the impression that something's happened, and psychologically or physiologically, you've seen it change, and you begin to feel better about it immediately. And so nothing mechanical turned on. It was just simply the tone of the texture of the lights. But you had so many good articles on your January edition. I wanted to
just stop you on that moment. I'll jump in real quick. Can you see us crusty old guys getting kind of soft and dreamy here? Pretty funny, eh?
You know, Ken,
Look
real
at the
quick.
stuff we're talking about,
right?
Touchy-feely stuff. We didn't used to do touchy-feely.
But Ken, I know Kenny read this book. Ken, you probably did too. Back in the '80s, there was a book called Megatrends by a guy named Nesbitt, John Nesbitt.
Oh, John Nesbitt, that's right.
And he talked about the fact that as technology advanced, that hand in glove with technology, the opportunity was going to be, he called it high touch, high feel. In other words, the more
high tech, high touch.
High tech, high touch. Yeah, Kenny's got it right. So the more technology you got, the more that the feeling aspect would need to come in to balance it out. And I think you're echoing that right now. It might have taken 40 years for it to come into being, but it sure seems like that's where an opportunity to differentiate is. So, the technologies seem to be all pretty much aligned. They all do the same sorts of things. And, there might be some differentiation, but it seems like as a vendor, if we're putting together a playbook for our vendors, it's, get the interface right. And then also focus on how you can, generate that high touchy feely stuff, right?
Okay, just one more thing too. The rate at which this is coming at us is just unbelievable. But okay, so I started with the face and how we might transform to a more mindful face. Now we've chatted a little bit about how important the voice interface would be, and the February article is going to be about building brains and the whole idea of pushing artificial intelligence and self-learning into these devices as well. I mean, as this device starts to present itself to me and I start to interact with it, then I expect some level of intelligence. And what we're starting to see is, I just saw something across my desk that Microsoft has some downloadable free software that'll run in a Raspberry that has artificial intelligence and self-learning algorithms in it. I mean, that's amazing. So back to our doorbell, which we talked about several sessions, and you said, why would I buy this doorbell? And I told you, well, because it's cheaper than your old doorbell and you don't have to wire it. You said, oh, that I would buy. But it will come with all of these things. You'll be able to talk to it. You'll be able to, and it will learn. It will learn what time you normally come home. It will maybe tell you that, the kids haven't come home yet. Do you care? Yeah. Or do you know? And, all kinds of things will come out of an intelligent doorbell.
Well, Ken, talking about that, I think we might have spotted another trend too. Our friend George Thomas had an article in your January edition talking about we've gone from open software. Now he's proposing open hardware, which is a concept I hadn't heard of. So speak, if you would, about what George is talking about in that, because I thought that was a fascinating concept, Kenny, that I hadn't heard of up until now.
You guys got to be proud that you can't keep your old Hall of Fame winners down here. You keep trying to bury us, but we keep coming up out of the dirt. And George is another amazing guy that just keeps on ticking. And so he's leading edge, and he's brought up some amazing observations. Another one that's inside of all of that, the hardware thing, is basically the open source software. And he's building on the Sedona, and of course they were leaders in that. And now what they've found is that they can take all of this amazing open software that they've been creating, and they basically can run that on what has been sort of categorized as hobby computers, such as the Raspberries and the Beagle boards. And so when he went to Europe, he was kind of looking for that. Is there anybody else? Are we way out there and going the wrong direction, or is anybody else doing this? And what he came back with is, wow, there's even a few folks that are doing more than we are. And then he says, this is interesting, because we're at a tipping point. In the old days where we used to use Intel chips or use whatever Motorola chips in our old DDC systems, we're now, the next episode, I guess, is that we start using these what they call them, small form PCs. I think it's something they call it. Some call them something like that. Anyway, the idea is these things become so cheap, and they keep getting, every time they sell more of them, they become cheaper and they become more powerful. And so they become the brick that these new products that we talk to will be built on. And so that's got to scare the heck out of the DDC manufacturers, because they've got a bunch of products that have been built on pieces of laptops, and now they have to build their products on pieces of phones and Raspberries and Beagle boards.
The thing too is you're right on track, Ken, with the whole thing, and it's fun to do this because especially when you see the trends actually manifest themselves in our day-to-day world and businesses. But there was another interesting article in this January edition of Automated Buildings, and the Control Trends community should certainly read these things because they're just full of updated information. This one's by Rick Rolston from the Built Space Technologies Corporation, and he goes off of John Petsy saying that there's no such thing as IoT in the buildings. And he makes some great statements, but what I really thought was awesome about that particular our editorial article was that, he tells about how IoT is coming in and how I believe that IoT is a transformation of business processes, and that process improvement and collaboration are necessary prerequisites to connected devices and buildings. If successful, this transformation will provide large cost savings, and not hard drives full of incoherent data. So I really thought that was a profound statement. But the cost thing that he put in there. So what kind of cost efficiencies savings are when we're talking about all these things that we're the good feely touchy things, which is well said because high tech, high touch makes extremely good sense here. He says the facility services are 1.12 trillion annual spend globally. And that doesn't count self-managed buildings. A survey by Employee.com found that as many as 66% of employees in the UK believe that their time is wasted on a daily basis because of the inefficiencies of business processes and systems. They found that 32% of the workers estimated that 2 to 3 hours of their workday as a result of the systemic inefficiencies. So that means that if you were getting 2 to 3 more hours per day per employee, the global potential is 400 billion annually with just a good guess. So the world's largest data mining opportunity, and the rewards will go to those that capture and mine the best operational data. So there is kind of a nutshell coming 360 with what we're talking about kind of at the beginning of the show to what the meaningful results are. Is not only are the vendors that are agile and transition quickly, are they going to have an opportunity, but that the opportunity is ginormous. I don't think I've ever heard that much money is associated in improving efficiencies, but there it is.
Yeah, Rick's a great guy, great resource. Sat down with him and his wife. I think it was in San Diego at the IBCon show, and we had a good chat. He's over in Vancouver, so he's another small independent company that has done well and has basically sold a lot of their products and concepts to Schneider and a few other folks. Just to give a practical example of all those words you just said, so somebody would say, yeah, how am I going to do that? One of his products is basically a QR code that you stick on a product. So imagine this, I've crawled up on a roof and I finally got to the rooftop and I get there and the thing's not working. And I hold my cell phone up. My cell phone reads the QR code. The QR code of that device brings up all of the maintenance information, brings up the wiring diagram, brings up the sequence of operation, brings up anything I need to know. So I'm now sitting there on this hot roof and I'm reading through this. And I have online help. I probably do have online help as well. So I basically look at the wiring diagram, check the things it told me to check. If that doesn't do it, I can have an expert air conditioning guy come on my cell phone and say, okay, you went through all the obvious things. Did you try this? Did you try that? And I get the air conditioning going and I go back down. I mean, you imagine how we used to do that. The guy used to come out in the truck 3 times, climb the roof 20 times, it's just amazing. So, it's easy to imagine.
Yeah, and climbing those roofs, not as time consuming, and it's also the older you get, the more difficult it gets. And as Eric always says, the drones that we see coming, that one day you'll be able to go, if you don't already have it logged, who's the company, AI, I think, out of Oklahoma, they have all that stuff in a software program, even a picture of the equipment, but then the QR code. So imagine you send your little drone up there and it takes it goes up to it. So before you even go up the ladder the first time, you've already got that diagnostic information. But yeah, I'd love it.
Yeah, Ken, Otto, you might want to reach out to Jeff Haupt over there at AI in Oklahoma, because exactly what you're talking about, they're doing this, and they've got case studies where they've saved a bunch of money. And I would encourage our Control Trends audience. These guys are Master Systems Integrators, won the Master Systems Integrator of the Year award 1 year, and a super sharp guy. We'll put their website in the show notes. But Ken Sinclair, they would be somebody you should hook up with them. Sure. Because I think they can provide some good content for you. Kenny, anything else before I think we want to transition now, because we're having another great conversation with Ken Sinclair of AutomatedBuildings.com.
We're going to have to bounce over. We're just going to review the Control Trends Awards real quick, and we appreciate Ken and Brad White from SES Engineering assisting us. They'll be helping us on stage with the Young Guns and perhaps a few other categories. But just want to remind you, Ken, that starts the VIP event with EasyIO starts at 5:30. And our show begins on the button 6:30. We're going to be time sensitive on a run a show, so it's going to be a great opportunity to network, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, they can, and a lot of people might want to know, Ken Sinclair presenting the Young Gun Award, which is about younger people. So, Ken has found the fountain of youth. Ken Sinclair has, okay, and you know how you do those tests, and Kenny Smyers and I've been in, and the doc goes, well, even though you're 50, you have the body of a 70-year-old, you've been abusing yourself. So with Ken Sinclair, it's exactly the opposite. Since he found this fountain of youth, he goes to the doctor, and they go, Ken, you've got the insides of an 18-year-old. So Ken and Brad White will be presenting our Young Guns Award this year, and so the Control Trends Awards is going to be awesome. But Ken, also you got a lot of stuff we've talked about it in the past, but I think it bears going over one more time. Is AHR approaches. I mean, you got 3 or 4 really fantastic programs that are coming up, and if you be kind enough for our Control Trends community, just give them one more lowdown on some of the great things you got going on.
Okay, I think the other thing is never grow up. You gotta grow old, but never grow up. Just keep trying to think like a kid.
There you go. I like that.
Okay, we got some great sessions, and they're even better than I thought, because now we're putting them together. It's really exciting to see the interaction between all of those folks. So our first one is the future, the future of building automation, and on the edge. And I'm not sure if without a script I get these all in the right order, but then we've got the edge one with Anto and Therese, which is starting to go a lot of directions I hadn't anticipated, which is fun. That's been this whole how the edge is going to change, and it's pretty much echoes what we've been talking about in the last little while. We've got the Master Systems Integrator with Scott Cochran, and also Jason as well. So that's going to be great. Looking forward to that. And when we've of course got our collaboratory, and on that one, Andy McMillan has had a medical emergency, the family that he has to deal with. We're hoping the best outcome for that for him, and we've substituted George Thomas, who's going to talk about this idea of open hardware standard as well as open source. And of course, actually, Brad is a big advocate of open source and is doing some neat stuff with that. So yeah, I think it's going to be exciting. I always like these things, because if nobody shows up, all the guys I have in the room are, people I want to talk to and get some information from.
Well, and nobody showing up is not going to happen. Every year, the rooms get fuller and fuller. So, Ken, I'm guessing that you have, there's probably a link you could send us, probably on AutomatedBuildings.com. You probably have all those events someplace. If you'll send us those links, Kenny and I'll put them in this week's show notes so people can hop on over and get those show times.
Good. I've got one link. It's called the AHR Preview that has all of the events linked on it. The other thing I might give a hype for is AHR now has their app available. So if you go to their site, you can download the app, and this is certainly the way to navigate the Chicago show.
Hell, I'm not doing that, Ken. I'm going to get my Alexa and go, Alexis, tell me where Ken Sinclair's Master Systems Integrator event is. Why the hell would I download an app when I can just, talk to Kenny's Bluetooth headset? Come on, man. You're behind the times here, man. Quit holding on to that app thing, man. That's not going to happen. All right, man. Our guest has been the one and only Ken Sinclair from AutomatedBuildings.com. The January issue is out, so be sure to check it out, man. Ken, we'll see you next week, man, in Chi-Town. All right, man. Ken, great stuff from our friend Ken Sinclair. Can't wait to see what he has going on at HVAC, at the ASHRAE show. And speaking of that, our next post kind of gets into that a little bit, doesn't it?
Sure does. Chicago is going to be the place to be next week. We're heading out there. We'll be at the KMC Genius Summit Thursday. So for us, Chicago is going to be the place to be, the center of the universe, and a lot of other great organizations are taking advantage. They're taking advantage of people being in AHR show. There's a lot of, when everybody gets there, if you can take some of the time while they're there to get your meeting accomplished or whatever, it's a great opportunity to make use of people going to the show. Well, we have the women in the HVACR, and it's actually the total, what would you say that when you reduce things down to their letters only, WHVACR. So it's the women in the HVAC industry, and they have their big shindig on Tuesday night, 6:30 at Margaritaville Restaurant on the Chicago Navy Pier. And we were out there. Remember, it was a boy. Oh, yeah. I tell you, just the only thing is, if it's minus 10 degrees, that's going to be a chilly environment because it's right out there on the lake. But it's a beautiful area. But we talk about the some of our trends. One of them is the impact that women have always made, but now we're actually getting the chance to recognize them for all the good work they've done. And this organization takes this is what it's all about. What the women HVAC membership does is they help the women in our industry get things done, learn about the industry, market themselves, and network. So the most important thing is probably education, training, and networking, and then they share expertise. So it's a great organization, and we've got a chance to learn a little bit about them, and we do everything we can to support them. So they've got their big shindig again Tuesday night, which would make that January 23rd. From 6:30 to whenever at the Margaritaville Restaurant on Chicago's Navy Pier.
It's going to be good stuff there, Ken Smyers. Good stuff for sure. There's so much going on there, like you said, with the Control Trends Awards and everything else. So we'll probably be exhausted there. Margarita might be good along about Tuesday night for me and you, buddy. So you never know. But, hey, man, speaking of that, another Control Trends fan, and also somebody comes on and we've interviewed several times, is our good buddy Jason Houck. And what's he up to, man?
Well, they've got a webinar that I would not miss this. Anyway, you can attend this because this is another one of those previews into what's available now, what's available to help your organization specifically, and what's coming in the future. So it's a joint webinar led by CIO Jason Houck, also with Iodium. So there's going to be Ron Victor. He's the CEO and founder of Iodium. They're going to come together and they say, while the benefits of energy and sustainability, operational efficiency, and enhanced occupant experience are compelling, even the most experienced commercial, corporate, and institutional organization face significant barriers related to security, deployment, complexities, and data visibility. Well, these guys are the experts. These are the gunslingers from two different viewpoints. Jason Houck is one of the smartest guys in the business as a master systems integrator. This guy was programming, back when he was in 8th grade. He's already getting certifications. I don't remember exactly, but he was writing code, I believe, in 10th grade. And so he's very bright. And then Mr. Ron Victor, he is a very intelligent guy too when it comes to cybersecurity. So you're seeing these two experts come into the same forum and talking about their two expertises and how you interlock them and basically learn the latest and greatest things going from a master systems integrator's perspective and the panel shop. He also is the chief information officer of the panel shop, which is a great another great organization that you should look at if you need help with
I want to talk about that for a minute because the panel shop is a sponsor of the Control Trends Awards, and Kenny, it's a really, really interesting concept. You've used them, we've used them, they do a great job. But if you're a systems integrator, one of the trends we talk about is, man, just where do you find qualified people? I mean, it's hard to get people. Business is good for most people now, which basically means they're understaffed. And I think the part of the service that the panel shop provides is, why have one of your good technicians sitting on a bucket wiring a panel and putting a Jace in there when the panel shop can do that for you, and they'll ship it out. Whatever brand of Jace you want, they'll ship it out. They can offer, other services on top of that. I mean, they probably do some programming for you and stuff like that, but it's a great service. It's a very, very cost-effective way to deploy and use assets when you have a job and you need those Jaces put in a panel. I mean, it provides consistency across the board, and these guys provide great support. So definitely encourage you to check that out, the panel shop. And they spell it wrong, man. They're Canadian, so it's SSHOPPE.com. So they play hockey too. So what can you say? But man, Ted and Jason, man, congratulations to you guys. Look forward to seeing you in Chicago. They'll be there along with all the superstars. And Kenny, our last post of the week is Alexa, book appointment at the Hard Rock Cafe for the 2017 Control Trends Awards. This was, I guess when Ken Sinclair was talking about the article that John McHale had in automationbuilding.com this week about how we're using these voice-activated devices. Here's a little video. You can actually see how it's going to work from an Amazon perspective, so check that out as well. All right, there you have it, Kenny. Another week on Control Talk Now, the Smart Buildings videocast and podcast for the week ending January 14th, 2018. So, buddy, I tell you what, we'll see you guys in Chicago next week. Special thanks to our guest this week, Ken Sinclair. And we will leave you with a couple of highlights from previous Control Trends Awards. But until then, be bold, stay in control, and stay relevant.
Indeed, Eric.
Indeed, Kenny Smyers.
Yes, and welcome to Late Night at CTA, baby. Hi, this is Eric Stromquist at the 2013 Control Trends Awards at BB King's in New York City. This is our time. We come together, we celebrate, we have fun. We got an industry that we do important stuff, but it's not serious. We come together, we have fun at the Control Trends Awards.
Hey, Eric, it's a pleasure to be here. What a great event. You guys have just done an amazing job. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Mike, what are you wearing here? You got... Have you seen the Rockets? You know we're spending our money. This is Chris Eichmann, Johnson Controls. Chris, good luck today.
We are looking forward to an exciting day here at the second annual Control Trends Academy. Expanding community as well. I met a whole new partner here, a new organization that just signed up with us just here at the event. So I had not met the guy before.
John, good luck today. You guys are for several awards. Good luck today. John, Betsy, Sky Family, welcome to the show. This is a great event, second year in a row. It was amazing. One of the most courageous presentations all night. You guys had no words. First of all, it was the biggest video screen. It's difficult to deal with this. People say
it's not Ken as much as it is Dave.
Controls executives, oh my. If I was around controls executives, I wouldn't be able to control myself.
Thanks so much for coming. Enjoy the rest of your day. Keep drinking, folks. Thank you, ladies. Very nice. Hold on, my